simplifying expressions. So when simplifying equations or expressions, right, remember that there's always a 1 in front of a parentheses that has no number. And there's always a 1 in front of a variable that has no number. So like this, right? So if it was just a, there would be a 1 there. Or if there was a parentheses that said 4a plus 16b, there would be a 1 here. So it's important to always use order of operations when simplifying. And remember, distributive property falls into the multiplication step. So let's look at some examples. So example 1, we're going to solve for the following. So we have 4, and then we have 1x plus 5y minus 1, all in parentheses, minus 3, and then in parentheses, x plus 2 minus 5y. So it's kind of like taking the last two videos, and we're going to use both of them to then solve these. So the first step we're going to do is we can't do anything right inside the parentheses. There's nothing we can combine. So parentheses, and there's no exponents to solve for. So the next step would be to multiply or divide. So we're going to go ahead and multiply this 4, and we're going to multiply it by every term inside. So what does that become? So we have 4 times this 1x, so that's 4x. And then 4 times this 5, right, is 20. Let me just have the y there. And then 4 times 1 is just 4, so we have minus 4. We'll keep this all in parentheses. Then we have this 3. And what's interesting is that there is a negative in front of it. So we're actually going to include this whole thing, and we're going to multiply negative 3 times x, then times this 2, and then times this negative 5y. So let's do the first one. So we're just going to go ahead and say, we're going to go ahead and add, because we're going to account for this negative here in each term after. So negative 3 times x, well, that's just, there's just a 1 here, so that's negative 3x. Then we have negative 3 times 2, so that would be negative 6, right, or minus 6, right? We could do plus negative 6, or we can just go minus 6 to simplify. Somebody just share this. So we can go plus, right, negative 6, or we could just go minus 6. These mean the same thing, right? So we're just going to go minus 6. Then we have negative 3 times negative 5y. So we have two negatives, so that means it's going to be positive 15y. Then we can close the parentheses. So now the next step will be to combine like terms. So we have a 4x and a negative 3x here. So we would combine those two. Then we have this 20y, and then we have a 15y. And then we have two numbers that we can just combine. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to deal with the x's first. So we have 4x minus 3x. So we can go ahead and just rewrite this here. Then we have plus 20y plus 15y. Then we have minus 4 minus 6. So let's go ahead and solve. So 4 minus 3, well, that's just 1x. Notice you could put the 1, or you could just leave it as x. Either one will be right, and WildMap would take both answers too. So then we have 20y plus 15y. So that's 35y. Then we have negative 4 minus 6. So really we're just adding two negative numbers, so that would be minus 10, right? We could just say they're both positive, add them, and keep the negative sign. So now we can go and say that we have our final answer because we can't reduce this any further. So let's go ahead and do the next problem. So example 2, we're going to solve for the following. So we're going to notice we don't have any exponents we need to solve, right? It's not like this is x squared, but it's not attached to any numbers. We don't have to do anything there. And right, there's nothing inside the parentheses, which would be the first step, and then the exponents. Then we would go ahead and start to multiply or divide. And so in this case, we're only going to head and multiply. So we're multiplying by using distributive property, right? So we have this 2. We need to go ahead and multiply each term. So 2 times 3x squared is, right, 6x squared. 2 times negative 5x is minus 10x. Now 2 times 2 is 4. So that's the first one. So notice then on the second distributive property we could be using, right, it looks like we don't have to do anything, but really there's a negative. We need to go ahead and distribute that because it's really saying negative 1 times all these terms. So we have negative 1 times 2x squared. So that would be negative 2x squared. Negative 1 times 5x is minus 5x. Negative 1 times 7 is minus 7. Then the next step is to just combine like terms, right? Because we're just adding or subtracting in this next step. So we're going to combine these. Then we're going to combine the x's. And then we have our numbers here. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 6x squared minus 2x squared. And then we have minus 10x minus 5x. And then plus 4 minus 7. So we're going to go ahead and go 6x squared minus 2x squared. So that would be 4x squared because 6 minus 2 is 4. And we just leave the variable. Minus 10x minus 5x is minus 15x. And then 4 minus 7 is just negative 3. And so that would be our final solution.